Thank you. Oh, that sounded ominous. Let me get to this presentation mode here. Whoops, that's not it. All right, I need somebody to help me share the screen here.
So there's a green button at the bottom with a little arrow pointing
Oh,
up.
there we go. Yep, I got it.
Okay.
There we go. Can people see the slides now?
Yes.
All right. As John said, I've known John 20 years, and just first thank you all for getting up this early. As he mentioned, I worked for the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services for 24 years. Half of that was in the prison system, and the other half was as problem gambling coordinator. I left there in December, so I'm no longer affiliated with them, and these are my opinions and ideas. So don't I'm not associated with them in any way. Um, as he said, I did stand-up comedy for about 15 years, which made me uniquely qualified to work in state government. I got sober myself in 1994 um, after many, many tries. Ended up as shifting gears from comedy to counseling and went back to school to get my degree and worked in the prison system, several prisons, actually Lancaster, Orient, then was a hostage negotiator, and I was also on the security threat group task force. So I had a pretty varied interest in a lot of things in the institutions. One of them was a lot of violence associated with gambling in the institutions. So that's how I kind of got my feet wet with this. I started trying to get my guys on that I was responsible for out of violence and trouble, and learned a little bit about the gambling and the gangs and the things that were associated. So when the legislation passed for casino gaming back in 2011, I was in a position with some background in some education in gambling to be the guy that started this process. I worked with a woman named Karen Russo from the Ohio Lottery and a woman named Laura Clemens from the Casino Control Commission, and we established that three state agencies working together was more effective and better for everybody than all of us working independently. So that's how this launched in as the casinos opened in 2012. Um, Ohio did a prevalence survey back in 2012 prior to any of the casinos actually opening. That survey's been repeated every 5 years, the last one being in 2022. And this is kind of staggeringly obvious the effect that gambling had. In 2012, 41.4% of the population said they didn't gamble, and in 2022, only 17% of the population said they didn't. So that dropped dramatically. And if you go to the other end on the right, back then, 5.7% of the people said they had a problem of some sort related to gambling, and in 17 that doubled, and in 2022 that doubled again. So we're up to 1 in 5 people basically in Ohio that have experienced some level of harm or risk from their gambling activities. Don't confuse dollar amounts with harm. They Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson played golf and they were betting $1 million a hole. Well, that's great for them; they can do that. But for us regular people, $50 could be a devastating loss, in a budget. So don't confuse the dollar amounts with the actual harm. And if I promise somebody I'm never going to gamble again, and a scratch off lottery ticket shows up in my car or my pants pocket, and now I've lied. Now I've betrayed trust. So gambling harm is relevant to the situation or the relationship. And a lot of gambling activity is still illegal. March Madness is coming up, and the state had rules against gambling at work, and there was a bracket taped to the wall of every cubicle on my floor. So how bad is it? It becomes almost a common thing to have a bracket or talk about that at work. So And it should be also noted that the data collection for this ended on December 31st of 22, and sports betting went live on January 1st the next day. So these numbers don't include the harm from sports betting. That has been unbelievably popular, as many of you may have noticed. It's extremely risky. If you watch the ads, there's no, according to them, there's no risk involved, and most of it's free, right? You can get all kinds of bonuses and things. Now with sports betting, AI is sneaking into the mix. So if John bets on bowling and I bet on darts, when we open up our app, his promos are going to be bowling. My promos are going to be darts. They're not going to send us college football because we don't bet on that. So the promotion towards us through the app is going to be actually personalized. And if I bet $100 and John bets $20, his ads are going to be get $20 free. Mine are going to be get $100 free. They're actually going to target how we bet, the velocity, the amounts. They're going to try to increase our interaction with the sites through AI, which is, in my humble opinion, predatory. But it's a very very frightening mix into that arena, and the impacts are kind of obvious. People miss work. They want to watch the game. They want to they're watching it on their phone in their place of business. They're distracted by checking the scores, checking the spreads, checking to see how they're, where their if their deposit went through. And when I trained with the Jack Casino folks and the Penn Gaming folks, the actual staff that interacted with people on the floor, and I showed them that, if I come in and I'm there for 14 hours straight, or I'm back today and tomorrow and the next day, and I'm have the same clothes on, and I haven't showered, and I'm starting to look like I need to shave, and maybe I'm starting to smell bad, that those could be real clear indications of somebody that's preoccupied with being in there rather than whatever else they're supposed to be doing. And we talked about how to approach somebody like that. But if I'm in my basement on my lazy boy with my phone in my hand, there isn't anybody to tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, you think you should have a cup of coffee or go to the bathroom or something." And it can be very isolating. It can set us apart from social activity, other important activity. And then there's, I'm going to eventually, and gambling has a very, very unique property in that it has an element of hope, right? No other thing that we deal with has an element of hope. I could win. I really could. I mean, I could go get a Powerball or whatever tonight, and I could win. But how does that make us think? What if, right? What size pool am I going to get? What kind of car am I going to get? Who am I going to tell? Who am I not going to tell? We have that fantasy thing going on in our head as soon as we see the jackpot. And it's nobody is going to sit in a crack house and say, boy, any minute now my child support will be caught up. It doesn't line up. So eventually, and you can't OD, right? With anything else we deal with, there's a toxicity. There's a level that at which you can't go any further, and you'll pass out, throw up, or die. But with gambling, until I run out of ammunition, which is my money or the ability to access money, there's no sleep deprivation, maybe if I'm sitting at the slot machine for too long. And it has incredible mood swings. When I'm up, I'm up. When I'm down, I'm down. When I'm in action with have bets going on, I'm anxious. I'm irritable. I'm back and forth. And all of these things lend themselves to domestic violence, intimate partner violence, child abuse, child neglect, taking money out of the household budget that should be being used for food, for shelter, for utilities, for other recreational activities. I mean, any number of things. Caesars started a process many, many years ago where they have people that are employed that actually just walk the property and look for unattended children, unattended older adults. They walk the parking lots looking for pets left in cars, kids left in cars, older adults left in cars while people are inside. And this happens pretty regularly in the industry. Unfortunately, it's part of the deal. There was just a case here in Ohio where a father took his kids, gave them Benadryl, and put them in his car, and was in the casino gambling. And one of the kids woke up and was crying because kids are kids, and somebody coming in to work heard kids crying in a car in the parking lot, and it's a regular thing. It can be very, very devastating. So what populations are impacted the most? All of us. Nobody is immune, and for different reasons. Older adults, a number of things can occur here. One is they don't have the ability to go back to work and make back the money that they've lost. They don't, it's it can be very, very devastating financially, and they're also taking money away from medication or physical therapy or mo devices to mobility devices to get around. And also there's a cognitive decline. And the industry, unfortunately, will send a bus out to the senior living houses and the assisted living houses and make a day of it and give them a $5 off the buffet and a few free spins. Now I'm in there and I'm in, 88 years old, and all of a sudden my arthritis doesn't feel so bad and my gout doesn't feel so bad, and I'm peaking, and there's impact of all the lights and the bells and the people around me, and I feel pretty good and I can't wait to go back. And then the flip side of that is, and I have this, an elderly mom, I have power of attorney. I can get into her bank, I can get into her affairs, and I have the gambling problem, and I can bankrupt an older adult pretty quickly. This also happens in the developmentally disabled community and anybody that has power of attorney over someone that has a problem. Males 18 to 34, that's a risk-taking population. Hold my beer and watch this. That population is especially affected with the sports betting. Um, it's unfortunately females are catching up. In Ohio, it's about 50-50 male and female now. But that's a risk-taking population anyway. Veterans, there are slot machines on bases all around the world, except for in the United States. They use the money that they obtain from the slot machines on base for recreational, buying equipment, volleyballs, basketballs, things like that for our veterans, for our soldiers that are still deployed, but they come out of their active service, and that level of adrenaline that they experienced as a vet, gambling becomes a pretty interesting way to vent that. And then we have a lot of population in that population, but other populations with traumatic brain injury or PTSD from some other trauma. You'll talk to these folks and they get behind that slot machine, and those things are going around and around and around, and it takes them outside of that constant thought that they have in their head, and they're distracted enough that it's actually relief. It actually is medicating, and that can be very devastating too. Probably more one of the more interesting things that we deal with in this, there are medications that people can take that actually cause people to have what it's called hedonistic dysregulation, but it's compulsive behavior. These medications are dopamine agonists. A lot of them are prescribed for restless leg, Parkinson's. Um, but if you look at the little disclaimers that are on the medications that they advertise now that boost your antidepressant, say if you're on an antidepressant, you take this, you'll have a better effect. If you look at the crawl, um, unwanted behavior is part of the actual black box on those things. Sometimes it appears as hoarding or hypersexuality. Shopping is one, but problem gambling is one of the things that's actually listed in the unwanted behavior that you could experience taking medications. So if you're doing a biopsychosocial assessment on somebody, really important to ask them if they've started taking anything or what medications they actually take, because that could be the root cause of some of those behaviors. Other things that happen is right now in America, we have new citizens, language barriers, language. Everyone on this call this morning speaks blackjack. You don't have to know any words to play a slot machine. You can gamble on lottery tickets at the gas station without saying a word. So what language will prevent us from sometimes having gainful employment. So if I'm only making 400, 500, 600 bucks a month, that's not going to cover it. But back home, I was pretty good at cards or I was pretty good at dice. It becomes a way for folks to look for that hope, that way to get out of their situation. And that can be a problem. And then windfall, we saw an incredible increase in helpline calls when we were getting COVID checks, and now we're going to get income tax refunds. But somebody gets an unexpected amount of money, and this happens with scratch off lottery tickets. The gas stations and folks that sell those, somebody comes in and scratches off a ticket and wins 50 bucks, and they're like, "Oh my God, I wasn't expecting that. Give me a carton of cigarettes and I'll get a case of Bud." Um, so that windfall is makes us want to get, it was free money, right? It just happened. And there's triggers all around us. As I said, I'm a guy in long-term recovery. I don't want to be around beer, so I go to Steak and Shake. It's that simple. Where do you go to avoid this? I mean, if you turn your television on, you on in your car, your DraftKings, you're going to hear FanDuel, you're going to hear all those ads continuously. How lottery advertises heavily. If if you're in, oh, somebody muted. There we go. But if you're in Home Depot, on the back of your receipt, it says fill out this survey and you could get a free hammer, whatever. Olive Garden has the same thing. So there's a little raffle on the back of something. There's a thing you can get involved in. You can get in a drawing, 50-50 raffle at the high school football game. This is becoming, now I said March Madness is coming up. The brackets are going to be out. There's really no escaping the triggers or the input from the gaming industry, no matter where we are or where we go. And as many of us know, we don't do these things to feel good. We do them to feel different. I don't like the way I feel right now. I need to escape somehow to some other feeling, whether it's depression, my work situation, my relationship situation, my health, whatever it is. Gambling becomes, and as I said, now it's right in our hands. We can escape whatever those feelings are pretty easily and get a distraction pretty quick. And obviously there's a downside to that. So here is the diagnostic criteria, or what we look for in someone when, and I'll talk about the correlation with substance use here. One of them is gamble more money in order to feel the same desired excitement. I could be either more money or riskier bets. It can be gambling something on, some long shot bet, some big risk bet. We know this in substance use as tolerance. Same exact thing with gambling. Started out small, maybe won a little, maybe lost a little, but that excitement was pretty cool. And restless and irritable when you try to cut down and stop. Excuse me. There's um there's withdrawal from gambling, and it's hard to imagine something that I don't ingest it can have a withdrawal component, but it does. And folks coming off and stopping abruptly, they look like they're coming off of cocaine or methamphetamine, very restless, irritable, snappy, pacing, anxious, just really hard to be around. And, they're wondering, oh, did I stop too soon? Was the next time the one that was going to put me over the top? And we'll talk to folks that appear for treatment. Well, I can't stop now. I'm down $30,000. As soon as I'm even, well, then I'll stop. Or I have all these these coupons from the casino that I've built up over time with my frequent flyer card here, and I'm going to lose all these points, and I'm going to lose these discounts at the gift shop and at the buffet, and I can't stop now, it's kind of a hard sell. And then a lot of folks, unsuccessful attempts to control or cut back. That's again very similar to substance use disorder. And I've often said, if I have to control something, it's in control of me. I happen to really enjoy corn on the cob. I look forward to the summer when it's available and fresh from the farm market, but I've never tried to sneak it into the movies. I've never eaten it in the car. I don't have to lie about how many ears of corn I had. So if you're trying to control that yourself from that aspect of your life, that's a pretty indication. And we talked about this earlier. Often gambling when I'm feeling distressed, I want an escape. I want to get out. I want something different. Unique to gambling is chasing. Chasing. It could be chasing losses or chasing wins. Folks will appear for treatment. And you'll say, "Well, tell me how your gambling started." Well, I went to the track with my grandpa, and he let me pick a horse, and the horse won. So he gave me $20, and they have this real salient memory of that camaraderie with their grandpa, and they won, and they picked the horse, and they got $20, and they'll have that real clear memory, and they continue to look for that feeling again. And this is why it's so dangerous to give kids scratch off lottery tickets like in their Christmas stocking or their graduation card. You got a 15, 16, even younger kid, and they scratch off a ticket, they win $50. Well, I would like to win $50. Imagine being an 11-year-old kid and getting $50. It becomes the thought is, well, that was easy. And I can take that $50 ticket down to Sunoco and I can run it through the vending machine where there's no adults watching, and I can buy more tickets. And then the flip side of that is I take $100 to go to the grocery store, and I just happen to go by one of the racetracks on my way, and I think, well, I'll just run in real quick, put the $100 in, then I'll go to the grocery store when I'm done. Well, I lose the $100, and then I go to the ATM and I get my $100 out of the ATM to go back to the machine because I've got to get my money back before I leave. And now I'm down two, and then I'm down four, and then I'm down eight. So we'll chase that loss, try to get back to even, and we'll chase that feeling of winning. Either way, it's detrimental. Now, and this is, I think, interesting. Lying is actually a diagnostic criteria. It's the only place it appears, even in antisocial personality disorder. I think they call it levels of misinformation or something nice, but actually lying is one of the diagnostic criteria in gambling. And this is lying how much I've won, how much I've lost, where I got the money, where I've been, how much time I spend. You'll find that this is and this is one of the things that we train when we talk to clinicians. So I'm not going to bring somebody into my office and say, "You look like a liar to me. Are you a liar?" Because you're going to put them on their heels right immediately, and they're going to dig in. So a better way to figure this out would be: have you ever not shared how much money you've won with your family? Have you ever not shared anything about where you've been? You can say it in a kind of a nicer way. Risk or loss of significant relationship, job or school. That's again very very similar to substance use disorder, where I know that I shouldn't do this. I know that I'm on the launching pad at work. My grades are sliding. I've been lying to everybody, and my relationships are in the tank. Um, and I continue to do that. And unique to gambling is bailouts, where I need to go to somebody and I need to say, "Hey, can you help me out here? I'm really in bad shape. I I got a guy come into the house later and he's got a bat. I need 50,000 pretty quick." And this is also where people start taking money from businesses, from relatives, from kids' accounts to get out of their situation. So what works? Cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the better things that we found as effective. because you got to get rid of that thought process, or change that thought process. And motivational interviewing seems to be very, very effective too, because you're not going to, and you think about anything that we do, you're not going to stop just because somebody said stop. And this is a kind of a dirty word in our substance use family, but harm reduction. So you said you gamble $500 a week. Do you think you can cut that back to three? You said you gamble 5 days a week. Do you think you can cut back to three? And here's a calendar I want you to write on here, your wins and losses over a week. And then when you come back, we'll talk about it. Well, you said you were going to go down to five and or down to three from five, and you're up like at 450. What happened? Well, I had a fight with my family and my job. Oh, okay. Well, then we'll start working on those things. And mindfulness has proved to be pretty effective in this population to relieve some of that anxiety. So cognitive distortions are huge. Um, People think they have a system, they have an edge. If you go into the casino on the roulette wheel, they put the last like 15 numbers that popped up. So I walk by that and I go, wow, all those numbers are odd. I'm putting five on odd. And John walks by and says, whoa, man, all those numbers are odd. That can't happen forever. I'm putting five on even. And then Hannah goes by and says, well, that's cool. That's my birthday, my mom's birthday, my cousin's birthday, my uncle's birthday. My dad's birthday's got to come up. I'm putting five on his birthday. We're all right. We all put a paradigm. We all put a meaning behind. Well, here's a tip for all of you. It's a marble. It's a marble. It doesn't have any memory. It doesn't know where it's been and it doesn't know where it's going. But we will attach something to that. Last time I was here, I played the third slot machine from the left and it was raining. I'm going back on a rainy day and get to that machine. And it doesn't mean anything. So that CBT really comes in handy. And what's my motivation? Am I trying for a financial gain? Am I trying to get out of a bad situation? Do I have another health disorder? Do I have another cognitive disorder? Why am I doing this? So it's good to find out. And a lot of people, it's desperation. They're in a horrible situation, work, school, home, whatever, and they're trying to get out of it. And they look to this as their way out. So help's available. Um, if you don't know where help is in your area, it's usually pretty hard to avoid it now. With the this was interesting when the sports betting came up. Every jurisdiction that the ad ran in had to have a helpline number on the ad, so there was like 22 numbers at the bottom of the screen, and even if you ran up to the screen in crisis and saw a number, you would get Louisiana or something. So the sports betting folks agreed to use 1-800-GAMBLER. So if you need help or referral, you need to move somebody. 1-800-GAMBLER will get you there. That was the New Jersey number. We worked out a deal with them to use that number nationally. In Ohio, we have in other states as well. There's some telehealth available, and if you call that 800, well, actually, 1-800-GAMBLER will transfer to your state helpline from GeoSynced. But in Ohio, we found that our helpline was a referral. I would get somebody on the phone. I'd say, yeah, well, you can call the treatment center in your area on Monday morning at 8. Well, if it's Friday 4 in the morning, I'm not gonna maybe I won't last the weekend. So we've actually instituted a warm transfer, and some other states have done this too, where you can get to a warm transfer telehealth. There's an organization called Birches that does telehealth, and there's several others, but you can find that through those numbers as well. So help is available. It's important to link people to those resources as you can, and of course, there's 12-step programs, Gamblers Anonymous, and things like that in many communities as well. This was kind of I'll just give you a quick story of somebody that we dealt with here in Ohio. Superintendent of schools, a big school system. His wife was a teacher there, and his kids were students in the school system. And he was a gambler. Um, and a check came into the school for $140,000 for him to buy iPads for one of the groups. And it was a Friday afternoon, and he thought, if I take that $140,000 to the casino this weekend, I can play with their money, and then I'll just put the 140,000 back Monday, and I'll keep whatever I make. So Saturday evening he was broke. He had gone through $140,000 in one day. in a casino, and now he was screwed. He had to come up with $140,000 and started lying to everybody basically, but then started taking money out of his kids' college funds. And he was able to carry this out for a pretty good long time before a house of cards fell in around him and the sheriffs came to his house. His wife was very surprised when they let him off in handcuffs. And then the news got involved and it made the news. And now he's got kids in that school. His wife's a teacher in that school. He's in jail. And obviously, the house of cards came down around the whole family. So now we have kids to deal with, we have the spouse to deal with, and we have him to deal with. And it became an enormous project, with lots of resources and lots of people involved. He's gamble free now. He's doing quite well. Obviously, he's not a superintendent any longer. His wife's still in the school system, but he's made amends and paid everybody back after his jail time and so forth. But that's how it's like throw a rock in the pond and the ripples go out. It doesn't affect just the gambler. It affects a school system. It affects all the kids. It affects his family. It affected a broad range of people. So I can answer any questions that anybody might have, but appreciate your time this morning. That's just a it's sort of a rock in the pond of information. I know I threw a lot out there, but this is a huge part of our society and our just the way things are right now. And it's getting more. And John and I talked before we came on. They look at this as revenue for the state because the percentage of it goes back to the state, but the harms are huge and far reaching. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.